I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of what's happened. It started out like any other marriage, months of planning, late nights working, a whirlwind wedding I thought we'd both cherish forever. I always believed my wife, Lisa, was trustworthy. She seemed honest, caring, the kind of woman you could count on. But all of that changed the night I found her email on her phone, right there in our hotel room during our honeymoon. I'd been feeling uneasy all day. Something was off. She'd been unusually quiet at dinner, distracted even. I chalked it up to excitement, but deep down I felt a gnawing suspicion. When she finally excused herself to the bathroom, I reached for her purse, feeling guilty but unable to help myself. I needed to know. Her phone was right there, unlocked. She never thought I'd look. I scrolled through her messages and my stomach turned cold. There, plain as day, was a string of texts with Jake, her coworker. They weren't just friendly banter, it was flirtatious, intimate. Words like miss you and can't wait to see you again jumped out at me. I remember feeling my palms go numb. My throat closed up. I stared at the screen, trying to process it, but it was like watching my whole world crumble in slow motion. How long had this been going on? Was this why she'd been acting so distant lately? I closed her phone and leaned against the bathroom door, trying to steady my shaking hands. My mind was racing. I felt betrayed, furious, and numb at the same time. She was supposed to be my wife, the woman I trusted with everything. And here she'd been sneaking around with Jake for who knows how long. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but instead I just stood there, feeling the weight of it all. When she came out, I looked her straight in the eyes. "Who is Jake?" I asked, voice low and tight. The color drained from her face and she hesitated. For a second she thought she could deny it, brush it off. But I already knew. I'd seen her messages, I'd read her lies. "Tell me the truth," I pressed. Her voice trembled as she tried to deny everything. "It's nothing, just a mistake. Don't lie to me." I cut her off sharply. "I saw the messages. I saw what you've been doing behind my back." That's when she broke down, tears streaming down her face, trying to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. All I could feel was this burning need to make her pay for what she'd done. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was the lie, the deception, the way she'd convinced herself she could get away with it. That night, I realized I'd never truly known her. I stayed silent, staring at her, my mind already racing with a plan. I knew I couldn't just walk away. She'd lied and she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. So I started to map out what I'd do next. Trust was broken, and I had no intention of letting her think she could get away with this. My first instinct was revenge, not in a childish way, but a calculated move to make her understand that she'd crossed a line. That was the moment I decided to find a way to turn the tables. If she wanted to play her game, I'd play mine. I wasn't going to just forgive or forget. No, I needed her to see that the man she betrayed was no longer the man she once knew. She had to face consequences, and I was determined to be the one to deliver them. This was just the beginning. I knew she'd try to talk her way out of it, plead her innocence, or make me feel guilty. But I wasn't falling for that. Instead, I kept my eyes on her, feeling a strange calm settle over me, like the calm before a storm. Now I had to figure out how to make her regret everything. The thought of her with Jake, of her lying to me, made my stomach turn. I had to act fast. I needed a plan. The question was, how far was I willing to go? Because once I started, there was no turning back. And that's when I realized I'd never been more certain of one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I was going to make her see what betrayal really looks like. I just hadn't decided exactly how yet. But I knew I'd come up with something. I could feel it burning in my chest. The game was on. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind kept circling back to what I'd discovered. Her phone, the messages, her trembling voice. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, that sick, hollow feeling deep in my gut. And yet beneath that, there was a strange clarity. I knew I couldn't let her think she'd gotten away with it, not without some kind of consequence. I spent the day pretending everything was normal. She was trying to act like everything was fine, too, smiling weakly during breakfast, avoiding eye contact. I watched her, assessing, planning. I didn't want a scene, not yet. I needed to be smart about this. The first step was gathering evidence, solid proof that I could use to confront her fully. That night, I waited until she was in bed, scrolling again through her messages for anything I missed. I found a few texts that confirmed her feelings for Jake went beyond just casual flirtation. There were even some photos, nothing explicit, thankfully, but enough to make my stomach churn. I made sure to copy and save everything on my phone, just in case I needed it later. I sat in the dark, my fingers cold, and thought about what I wanted. I wasn't just going to leave her to walk away scot-free after this. I had to make her see that her lies had consequences. That was the core of it. My pride, my trust, everything she'd lied about. I wanted her to understand that she'd gone too far. The next morning, I woke up with a plan already forming. I decided to set a trap, a way to catch her in an even bigger lie. I told her I was going to work early, but instead I went to the office late and parked nearby. I waited in the shadows, feeling like a damn spy. After about an hour, I saw her leave the house, looking nervous, clutching her purse tightly. I watched her get into her car, then drove behind her at a safe distance. She went straight to Jake's apartment. I followed carefully. I wanted to see how far this thing went, how deep her betrayal was. I saw them through the window. She was there for over an hour. When she left, she looked flushed, like she just had sex or worse. I snapped a few pictures. On my phone, feeling the rush of adrenaline. That was it. I had enough proof now. I knew her pattern, her lies, and her secrets. That evening, I confronted her as she came home. Her face was a mask of surprise and guilt. "Where were you today?" I asked, voice tight. She hesitated, then fumbled for an excuse. I cut her off. "Don't lie to me. I followed you. I saw you go into Jake's place. I saw you leave too. Don't pretend you're innocent." She broke down, crying harder than before. "It's not what you think. It was just a mistake." "Save it," I snapped. "You lied about everything, about us, about your feelings. How long has this been going on? How many times?" She stammered, trying to deny everything, but the proof was undeniable. I felt a strange mix of anger and calm. I'd always known she was capable of betrayal, but seeing her with my own eyes made it real. I realized I had to act decisively. I couldn't let her keep lying and pretending like it was just a fling. I told her I needed time to think, but I already knew what my next step was. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her trying to manipulate me into staying silent. I had to make sure she understood that I had her cornered, that she couldn't gaslight her way out of this. I spent the next few days setting up my revenge. I kept digging, gathering more evidence, talking to a few of her coworkers who might have seen something. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in. Meanwhile, I kept appearances, pretending everything was normal, not giving her any indication of my plans. Every time she looked at me, I saw the shame and guilt swimming in her eyes, and I savored it. That was the fuel I needed. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without a plan, so I decided to take a more strategic approach. I wanted her to feel vulnerable, cornered. I had to make her believe she'd lost everything. I was going to turn this around, and when the moment was right, I'd remind her that trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. Not by me. Not ever. My stomach twisted every time I thought about it. The idea of revenge, of making her see the pain she'd caused, kept me awake at night. But I also knew I was doing this for myself, so I wouldn't be the one humiliated, not this time. When I finally revealed my plan, she would understand that betrayal doesn't just go unanswered. The pieces were falling into place, and I was ready to make my move. The question was, how much damage was I willing to do? Because once I started, there was no turning back. I wanted her to regret every lie, every secret message. I wanted her to know that I was the one who controlled the game now, and she was the player who lost. I looked at her, sitting across from me, trembling, and thought about how this story might finally end. The revenge would be sweet if I played my cards right. It was only a matter of time before she realized she'd crossed a line she could never uncross, and I'd be there, watching her fall. The days that followed felt like walking on a tightrope I'd rigged myself. Every moment I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I knew exactly what I was going to do, how I was going to make her pay for all those lies, for the betrayal, for the way she'd shattered what I thought was unbreakable. It was like a switch flipped in my head. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was methodical, calculating, and determined. I started by planting small clues around the house. Nothing obvious, just enough to make her paranoid. A strange phone call I received while she was in the shower, a late-night text I sent to myself that looked like a message from her. I wanted her to feel watched, to sense that her secrets were no longer safe. During this whole process, I kept my emotions in check, no shouting, no accusations. I was playing chess and she was my unwitting opponent. One evening I came home early from work pretending I was just tired. She was nervous right away, avoiding my gaze. I said, "We need to talk." Her lips trembled, she knew what was coming. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I know about Jake, about everything. Don't bother denying it anymore." Her face went pale. "Please don't do this, I was weak," she whispered, voice trembling. "Weak?" I scoffed. "You were sneaking out at night, lying about where you were, sending secret messages. That's not weakness, that's betrayal." I paused, watching her struggle to speak. "And I have proof. Photos, messages, everything." Her hands clenched into fists. "You're overreacting. I made a mistake. We can fix this." Fix it, that's what she thought. I felt my jaw tight. Fixing it means I forgive you. You think I can just forget you lied about Jake, about everything we had? No, you're going to learn that betrayal has a price. She broke down crying, begging me to forgive her, saying it was a one-time thing, that she loved me. I nodded slowly, feeling the cold resolve take over. "You said you loved me. That's why I want to show you what betrayal looks like when it's returned in kind." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the phone with the evidence I'd compiled. "Here's proof. Every message, every lie. And I'm not done." Her eyes widened as she saw the photos of her sneaking out, her blurry face leaving Jake's apartment. I watched her face turn from defiance to despair. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice cracking. "Doing what you did to me," I said quietly. "This isn't just about revenge. It's about teaching you that honesty is a two-way street, and you've burned that bridge. I plan to make sure you remember this forever." I took a deep breath, feeling the surge of adrenaline. "Tonight I'm going to tell everyone what you're really like, your coworkers, your friends, anyone who ever trusted you." She looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks, and whispered, "Please don't do this. Not like this." "Like what?" I asked coldly. "Like a coward who ran away and lied, or like someone who's finally going to face the consequences of her actions?" That night I put my plan into motion. I drafted a message exposing her affair, carefully crafted without crossing certain lines. I sent it to her coworkers, her friends, and her social media. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within hours, her phone was blowing up with calls, messages, and whispers behind her back. I heard her in the bedroom, screaming and crying, trying to stop the storm I'd unleashed. Watching her crumble was satisfying, but I wasn't finished. I wanted her to truly feel the repercussions of her betrayal. That meant one more step, one final act of revenge to make her understand the depth of her mistake. I made sure she knew I documented everything, that I had a plan to make her regret ever crossing me. As she sat there, trembling and broken, I leaned in close. "You're going to have to live with this," I told her. "Your reputation is in ruins, and you're going to have to deal with the fallout. I hope you remember this moment, because it's the last time you'll ever lie to me, and the last time you'll betray someone like this." She looked up at me with hopeless eyes, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I had her cornered. She tried to manipulate and deceive, but now it was her turn to pay. I knew this was just the beginning, that I'd keep pressing until she understood the real cost of betrayal. It was time for her to see just how much she'd lost, and how far I was willing to go to make sure she never forgets it. Tomorrow, I'd take the final step, something concrete, something she'd never recover from. I just needed to prepare myself for what was coming and for how I'd walk away afterward. Because this story wasn't over yet, and she was about to learn that revenge isn't just a feeling, it's an art. The fallout from my revelations was immediate and intense. Her phone kept ringing off the hook, and her face was a mask of panic and shame. I stayed in the living room, watching her reaction, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and cold resolve. This wasn't about just hurting her. It was about making her see that she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and I intended to make sure she remembered every second of it. She finally sat down on the couch, trembling, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her voice was barely a whisper. "What now? What do you want from me?" I crossed my arms and looked directly at her. "What I want is for you to understand what betrayal really costs. You lied, you cheated, and you thought you could get away with it. But not anymore. I paused, letting the words sink in. You're going to lose everything, your job, your reputation, maybe even your friends, and I'll be the one to make sure you do. She looked up at me, tears welling again. Please, she begged, voice cracking. This isn't me, I don't want to lose everything. Oh, I think you're going to lose a lot, I said coldly. But it's not just about that, it's about teaching you a lesson. You betrayed me and I want you to feel the pain of that betrayal, not just for today, but forever. For a moment she was silent. Then she whispered, what are you going to do? I took a slow step closer, still calm, deliberate. I've already started. I contacted your coworkers, your friends, and some people you never wanted to see you like this. The truth is out and there's no going back. You thought you could hide your lies, but I've made sure everyone knows what you really are. She looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. I saw her hands shake as she clutched her knees. I knew this was the moment I'd been planning for, a decisive action to drive the point home. Tomorrow, I continued, voice steady, I'm going to take one final step, something that will make sure you remember this for the rest of your life. You might think I'm angry, but honestly, I'm just done pretending. I want you to understand that trust, once broken, can't be repaired with apologies or tears. It takes more than that. She looked at me desperately. You're going to leave me. I shook my head slowly. Not yet, but you're going to learn what happens when you push someone too far, and I promise you this will hurt. Because I'm not just doing it out of revenge, I'm doing it because you deserve to know how it feels. Her eyes widened. What are you talking about? I pulled out an envelope from my pocket. This is everything, the proof, the messages, the photos. I've been collecting it for days. Tonight I'm going to send it to your boss, your friends, anyone who needs to know what kind of person you really are. And then you'll see what real consequences look like. Her face crumpled. You're serious? I am. And I want you to remember this moment, I said quietly, because from now on, nothing will be the same. Trust is gone, and you'll have to live with that. She looked like she was about to break, but I kept my composure. I wanted her to feel vulnerable, cornered. That's what revenge was about, making someone see what they've lost and how far they've fallen. I handed her the envelope. This is step one. The next will come tomorrow. Be prepared for it. She stared at it, trembling, then looked up at me with eyes full of regret and fear. Please, she whispered again, don't do this. I took a deep breath, then turned away. It's already done, I said softly. You brought this on yourself. I knew I was crossing a line, but I didn't care. She'd pushed me to the edge, and I was about to make her fall. The game wasn't over yet, but I could already see her world starting to crack. That was what I wanted, the quiet, inevitable collapse of everything she'd built on lies. Tomorrow, she'd regret ever crossing me. Tonight, I'd sleep knowing I'd finally taken control. This was the moment I had been planning for, the moment her deception met its consequence. And once I handed over those keys, that apartment, that life she'd tried to hide, she'd realize the price she'd paid for her betrayal. The weight of that realization would stay with her long after everything else was gone. And maybe, just maybe, she'd finally understand that some betrayals are unforgivable. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange mix of calm and anticipation. I knew I'd set everything in motion last night, sent the evidence, made the call. Today, she'd face the fallout. I could already imagine the look on her face when she saw the messages, the reactions of her friends and coworkers. That thought made my chest tighten with a strange satisfaction, even guilt. But mostly, I felt resolved. This was the final step. She was already awake when I entered the room. Her eyes looked heavy, her face pale. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, clutching her phone like a lifeline. I could see the moment she realized the truth was about to hit her. Did you send it? She asked softly, voice trembling. I nodded. Yes, everyone knows now, your coworkers, your friends, all of them, including your boss. Her face crumpled. You didn't have to do that? Oh, I think I did, I said, voice firm but controlled. You've been lying for months, sneaking around, and I was patient, but I'm not anymore. You wanted to keep secrets, so I made sure you'll never keep them again. She stood up suddenly, her hands trembling. Please, just don't do this. I never wanted it to get out like this. I stepped closer, feeling the adrenaline surge. You already did that when you betrayed me. Don't act innocent now. You lied, you cheated, and I'm just giving everyone the truth. You can't run from it. Her eyes welled up with tears. I was stupid. I thought I could fix it. I never meant to ruin everything. You thought wrong. I interrupted. You thought you could lie and manipulate your way out of this. Sorry, that's not how it works anymore. I paused, letting her take it all in. You wanted secrecy. I'm giving you exposure. And now you're going to face the consequences. I saw her swallow hard, trying to hold herself together. What are you going to do? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the keys to her apartment. You're leaving today. I want you to pack your things and get out. I don't want to see you here anymore. Her eyes widened in shock. You're serious? Dead serious, I said without hesitation. You lied. You betrayed everything we built. I won't stay with someone who's capable of this. You're going to move out and start over alone. She looked like she was about to argue, but I cut her off. I already told you I'm done. I'm done with your lies, your cheating, your manipulations. And I want you gone before I change my mind. She finally nodded, tears spilling down her face. Fine, she whispered. Fine, I'll leave. I handed her the keys, watching her take them with trembling hands. It felt like a victory, but also like the end of something I once believed in. I'd spent years trusting her, loving her, only to find out it was all built on lies. Now I was rebuilding my life piece by piece. As she started packing her bag, I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. I paused for a moment and looked back at her, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Remember this, I said softly. Betrayal isn't just about lies, it's about trust, something you lost forever. Don't come back looking for forgiveness. You had your chance and you blew it. Her eyes met mine one last time, filled with pain and regret. I walked out, closing the door behind me, the sound ringing in my ears. The house felt colder, emptier. I drove away knowing I'd done what I needed to do. I'd taken control, reclaimed some dignity, and made her face the consequences of her actions. The sting of betrayal was sharp, but I'd survive. And someday I'd find someone who valued honesty and loyalty. But for now, I needed to focus on myself. The key in my hand felt heavy, but it was also a symbol, an end, and a new beginning. Because some betrayals aren't just about hurt, they're about what you're willing to do to protect your own heart. And I was done losing myself for someone who didn't deserve it. After I handed her the keys and watched her walk out that door, a strange silence settled over the house. For a moment, I just stood there, feeling the weight of everything that had transpired. I'd orchestrated every move, from gathering evidence to sending the messages, to finally forcing her to face the consequences. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind this quiet emptiness, like I'd just closed a chapter I never thought I'd open. Driving away from the house, I felt an odd mix of relief and exhaustion. I'd finally taken back control, but it also hit me how much I'd been holding in, how much anger I'd buried beneath layers of shock and heartbreak. Now it was out, the truth was out, and she was gone, at least for now. Her presence, her lies, they weren't haunting my mornings anymore. As I sat in my car, I reflected on everything. The betrayal, the lies, the sense of being blindsided. It made me realize how fragile trust is, how easily it shatters, and how hard it is to rebuild once broken. I'd been stupid to think I could ignore the signs, but at the same time I'd learned a lot about myself, about what I'd accept and what I wouldn't. The act of ending it all, of finally walking away, felt like a relief, but also like a liberation. I'd been chained to her deception for too long. Now I was free. Free to start over, to rebuild what I'd lost, to find someone who valued honesty, who deserved my trust. That's what mattered most now, my future, not what had been lost. I knew I'd think about her, about what went wrong, for a long time. That's only natural. But I also knew that I'd come out stronger. I'd faced my pain, stared it down, and made a choice, one that I'd never regret. Because sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the poison completely. Sitting there, I took a deep breath, the fresh air filling my lungs. I pulled out the small envelope I'd kept, the proof of her lies, and gently dropped it on the passenger seat. It was a reminder, an anchor to my past, yes, but also a symbol of my resolve. I saw it, and I knew I'd never let anyone manipulate or betray me like that again. I drove home, slower than usual, feeling lighter with every mile. I was done pretending I didn't see the truth, done pretending everything was okay. I'd face whatever came next, alone if I had to, but better. Prepared, I'd rebuild my life better, wiser, stronger. And as I pulled into my driveway, I finally allowed myself to breathe out the pain, the anger, the betrayal, because now I was done with it. The past was behind me, the future. It was mine to shape, unburdened by secrets and lies. One thing I'll say for sure, betrayal scars, but it also teaches. And I learned that sometimes the only way to move forward is to cut the cords that hold you back. Whatever comes next, I know I'll be okay. Better than okay, because I finally took control, and that more than anything feels like freedom.